Well, if you're a listener to this podcast, you know that we recommend several books. The Richest Man in Babylon by George Gilder, Thou Shalt Prosper by Daniel Lapin, Don't Count on It by Jack Bogle, The Road to Serfdom by Hayek. And of course, today we're going to interview someone of another book that I highly recommend, just read it myself, Wealth and Poverty, George Gilder.
You are listening to Wealth Talks with Dr. Tom and John McPhee. We have a special guest for you today. Mr. George Gilder is a contributing author to Forbes magazine, a frequent writer for The Economist, The American Spectator, the Harvard Business Review, and the Wall Street Journal, and other publications. He is the author of several books, including the one Dad just mentioned, the bestseller, Wealth and Poverty. It was published in 1981, updated here recently. It has sold over 1 million copies. Welcome to the show, Mr. Gilder.
Well, my current book is called Life After Google, and it's also a bestseller all over Amazon right now and in China, believe it or not.
Amazing.
Where it was judged the best social science book of the year in China.
Oh, my.
So I've spent a lot of time in China, managed to escape without knowledge of the flu. But, I think was probably a close call. I ran off to London to meet with the Bitcoin folk at CoinGeek.
All right.
In London with Craig Wright, who is the actual Satoshi who originated Bitcoin. And so
that was a great book. Life
After Google is the book I'm touting now. That's the one that I'm going around the world trying to sell.
That's right.
The reason I'm on your program is to sell Life After Google. Anybody who wants to buy Life and Wealth and Poverty, they're welcome. But that was written 30, 40 years ago. Still, the Chinese just published it again, by the way. The Chinese just published a new edition of Wealth and Poverty.
Well, both of those are really good books, and I read Life After Google first, and then
you did, okay.
And then I saw that you'd written Wealth and Poverty and read it, and I'm impressed with both of them, and that's why we invited you on the show.
Okay, well, thank you.
So in your book Wealth and Poverty, and I know you're plugging Life After Google, and we're going to do that, but what is wealth and what is poverty? Can you define those terms briefly?
Yeah. Wealth is knowledge. We know wealth is knowledge because the Neanderthal in his cave, as Thomas Sowell observed years ago, had all the natural resources, all the material resources we have today.
Yes.
The difference between our age and the Stone Age is entirely the accumulation of knowledge.
Yes.
Wealth is knowledge. And if wealth is knowledge, what does that make economic growth?
Yeah, that's it makes it
learning
and the application of it.
And after Wealth and Poverty came out, Bill Bain of Bain and Company called me and taught me about the learning curve. And the learning curve is a foundation of scores of business consultancies, including the Boston Consulting Group and Bain and Company. And it ordains that with every doubling of total units sold, costs drop between 20 and 30%. And Bain and Company, Boston Consulting Group demonstrated that learning curves are ubiquitous across a capitalist economy. Everybody's learning all the time. Mm-hmm. Every business is a test of an entrepreneurial idea, and it yields learning because it can fail. If it couldn't fail, learning couldn't occur. So when government tries to guarantee growth, it in fact prohibits growth. And all these efforts to spew money out across the economy and guarantee outcomes actually thwart economic growth and retard the creation of wealth.
So that really ties into what's happening right now and all this money that's being thrown at the economy that was shut down by the government. What do you see happening because of this?
Well, I think that learning maybe has been accelerated. So we may be actually in a period of accelerating economic growth at this very moment.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I write a daily prophecy at gilderpress.com. And my last daily told about this professor at Stanford who started a company to harvest graphics processor and CPU cycles on laptops and game machines all around the country and use them to calculate protein folds in order to contrive a vaccine for the coronavirus. And protein folding is a very complex and difficult challenge. And the number of people pursuing this protein folding algorithm just across the country went up 700%.
That's incredible.
And since in the last couple months. And they're developing all sorts of possible vaccines, and it's a huge surge of creativity. And this kind of thing's happening all over the world. So economic growth is probably in a surge at the moment, even while the third big point of my information theory is that money is time.
Yes.
And all the damage in this crash is engineered what I call the viral pneumonia. It's viral pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And this viral pneumonia has caused an artificial crash of money, which is time. It's just delaying everything and rendering all time-based contracts nullified or frustrated.
Yes.
And so all the damage is just in the money. And meanwhile, the actual growth and creation of wealth may be accelerating. So that's
a powerful point.
That is really a powerful point.
So even while the money is experiencing a suffering, we could be going through an amazing phase of growth and the creativity that people are experiencing as they're working through the challenges, overcoming them, and producing something even better.
And the people that are doing that creativity, I like in your book how you talk about they're the people that have faith in the future.
That's right.
Because they can see, they're visionaries. They actually can see that this is a potential that could really be something that creates a better world for all of us.
That's correct.
So in your book, Wealth and Poverty, you talk a lot about upward mobility, and I know you're one of the most quoted living authors by President Ronald Reagan, according to an analysis of presidential speeches. So, would you mind talking a little bit about upward mobility and how that plays a role in American economy, both at this time but all of the time, really, in America? How does that apply in America and during the crisis right now?
That's what's important. I mean, real poverty is a state of mind. It's loss of faith in the future. It's loss of aspiration and imagination. And so what really matters is not the distribution of income, as people are constantly pretending. What matters is the distribution of hope and faith and creativity, which creativity always comes as a surprise to us. Thus, it feeds on faith, and that's what matters, and that's what fuels upward mobility. And I've been expounding this theory of money is time, and two professors have been doing calculations about money as time, computing time prices. And if you measure, and time prices are the number of hours and minutes a worker has to spend to earn the money to buy any good or service.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the same prices all over the world. It's measured in hours and minutes. And economists confuse and muddle the real world by imagining that they got to calculate inflation adjustments and GDP deflators and purchasing power parities and all these ridiculous jargon that actually confuses reality rather than elucidates it. Mm-hmm. The way time prices, one price everywhere, is that is one index, time it takes for workers to earn more money. And time, and this, by time prices, we're in a great global boom of creativity and innovation. Since 1980, Gail Pooley and Marion Tupy are the two time price paragons, and they show that while population has grown 71% since 1980, global population, abundance of goods and services as measured by time prices has gone up 518%.
Oh, that is incredible. Wow. That's awesome.
And the number, while all the prices of all the 50 goods and services most crucial to human life, from oil to fish to whatever, have dropped 72%. So prices have actually been going down, and the average worker is far better off than he was in the past. Upward mobility continues massively, measured by time prices, which are the real prices.
Yes. So you mentioned Thomas Sowell earlier, and what differentiates...
Great man.
He is. He's
he is, absolutely.
One of my favorite authors. What makes a difference between a Thomas Sowell and a Paul Krugman?
I don't know. Paul Krugman is a socialist. Really, all his assumptions are socialist. He doesn't understand the economy. He thinks it all can be calculated. And his economic model, I mean, he's preoccupied with money now. He thinks the economy is just in desperate straits. It's never going to recover because of this collapse of money. And but an actual capitalist can see the advance of creativity and entrepreneurial adventure, and can see that this economy will turn around on a dime once they end this utterly ridiculous lockup. It's a totally scandalous lockup. It actually slows the overcoming what was a perfectly manageable seasonal flu, no different from any other seasonal flus. And everybody gets it, and they get herd immunity, and it's over. And instead, we shut down the whole economy. I would have thought Trump was surrounded by these imbecilic experts
Yes.
like Krugman, who can see all the numbers but has no real idea of the world. And but I think he's going to fight free. I sense that he's about to burst out and emancipate the economy in a Lincolnian moment. So let's hope it happens.
I think you're right. That's not my feelings. I think he's starting to smell that something is not correct with all the projections and the graphs and
which were created by supercomputers.
But
garbage in, garbage out.
There's only one thing you got to know about this whole crisis. The death rate around the world has not risen.
Yes, you're right.
All they've done is take all sorts of ordinary deaths that are, it's sad. I'm 80 years old. I may keel over before this interview's over. but they take all the deaths that are happening all over the place. My mother, however, is 101 and she ain't dying.
But, great.
But anyway, they take all the deaths and they categorize them as COVID-19 deaths.
Yes.
And that's all that happened. There's no increase in deaths.
Yes, that's right.
And there was, it's just a complete, it's one of the most amazing blunders I've ever seen. The Italians have a terrible socialist healthcare system, which couldn't even handle a few more flu cases.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody extrapolated from the Italian data and the New York data and panicked. And it's a tragedy.
It really is.
It's also a comedy. I mean, just go and watch TV. Yeah. All these solemn politicians, they want to test everybody. Forget it. This is the flu.
Yeah.
We don't need to test everybody. We don't need to buy all sorts of test equipment. And the ventilators actually killed people. They put too many people on ventilators with intubations that actually killed people in New York.
That's right. But
the ventilators didn't help. This particular flu actually attacked the hemoglobin, so people ran out of oxygen because of the blood depletion rather than lung impairment. So it's really an amazing moment, but really you got to have a sense of humor. You watch these solemn politicians telling us you can't leave home without a mask, and it's laugh.
It is.
You have to laugh. Yeah.
But at the same time, the good news that you bring is that this is a time of huge economic expansion too, because creativity is busy at work with the people that see the future, that have faith in the future. And that's the important thing right here in the message that we want to focus on, because there's enough doom and gloom out there to make anyone crawl under a rock and die if you listen to it all.
Yeah. You got to laugh at it. You got to have a sense of humor. To watch all the experts of the world totally lose their head is quite an entertaining event if you look at it. They've lost their head. They're nuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Remember that?
I do. Yeah.
Nurse Ratched is in control of the world economy.
Just a little tidbit, The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was filmed in my hometown of Salem, Oregon at the mental hospital.
It was, all right.
Okay, so another question here. You talk about the 1517 Fund in your latest book, Life After Google. Yeah. How has academia, and particularly the student loan programs in the United States, how's that inhibited rather than helped the economy?
Well, the student loan program it's probably close to $2 trillion now total. $2. And did the colleges that suddenly, over a fairly brief period of time, 2 trillion extracted from the rest of us went to these colleges and universities. And did you notice the colleges and universities reducing their prices and allowing more people to attend and opening up new classes? And what they did was they hired scores, hundreds of thousands of diversity administrators and racism consultants and sexism psychologists, and they took the money and ran.
Yes,
and they should give it back. I mean, the loan program was supposed to help the students go to college. Instead, the colleges just took the money and didn't lower the prices, and left the students holding the bag. I think the colleges should have to pay back the $2 trillion. That's my view.
Yes, that's a good view. And with their huge endowments, what is it? Harvard's got an $80 billion endowment and just took money from the
they're spending
SBA.
on climate change.
Yes.
The new Harvard president wants to have the whole campus, all the science programs, all the language programs, all focusing on a climate change theme. This is another comedy. More of the experts going absolutely delusional. And
you touch on that too in your Life After Google, where these places like Google or they say they're green, and yet they have these huge stations that are
data centers
that are burning up so much energy that it makes everyone else look like.
Well, energy is abundant. And the big rule of entrepreneurship is you use what's abundant in order to save what's scarce. And what's scarce is arable land, or the surface of the planet is scarce. Oil isn't scarce. Coal isn't scarce. Natural gas isn't scarce. But the surface of the planet is scarce. So when you cover the beautiful agricultural land of Indiana, which I drive over from time to time, with windmills, and you're wasting what is scarce, the surface of the land, in order to save what's abundant, which is all the minerals below the surface of the land, the oil and the gas and the coal and all the real efficient energy sources that we've used.
And here in Las Vegas, we've got all these.
The real scandal of Google is that they support this religious cult of climate change, and thus want to stop the world economy again. Once they finish stopping it for the coronavirus, they're going to run right on and try to stop the world economy again for climate change.
Yes.
And that's why it's really crucial to win this battle.
Yes. You talk about windmills here in Las Vegas with the sun shining so much. We've got all these solar farms that are all over, and they take up acres and acres and acres of land that then have to be sprayed with Roundup and exterminated for rodents and snakes because they come in and chew the wires up. So they're polluting the land with something that was probably, worse than if we just did something else.
It is. It does not produce energy. These are purely religious. They're totem poles and druidical sun henges, I call them.
That's druids. A good term. That's a good term.
Druids are erecting these sun henges all around the country to tribute to their gods.
Yeah, it is a religious thing. The fanaticism that people get when they go after those energy sources.
You know what it is? It's all a way to blame Republicans for the weather. That's what it's about. It's blaming Republicans for the weather.
Interesting. So any other questions that you would like to ask George Gilder here on the call, Dad?
Well, I just want to thank you again, Mr. Gilder, for being so diligent and thorough in your research and writing these 2 books. I know you've written many others, but Life After Google was just, I got so excited reading that book because I saw hope for the future where everyone else is talking about doom and gloom and moving toward a more socialistic state. And then going back and reading Wealth and Poverty after that. You've really done a service.
Knowledge and Power is another book I've done, which does the information theory.
Okay, great.
Okay, sounds like we have another book to add to the reading list.
So
you
wonderful.
got plenty, yep.
So is there anything that you would like to leave our audience here with some final thoughts, Mr. Gilder?
Well, don't believe what they tell you. Draw your own conclusions, and have faith in the future. Be creative in the image of your creator. That's the theme of Wealth and Poverty and Knowledge and Power and Life After Google.
Yes.
Absolutely. So in order to get Mr. Gilder's material, you can go sign up for his daily briefing at gilderpress.com. And where's the best place to get your book? Either Life After Google or Wealth and Poverty. Is it Amazon.com, or is there another place they should go?
I guess these days it's Amazon. The bookstores are closed, right?
Okay.
I think books apparently carry the coronavirus.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Amazon.com will be sure to include those links here in the podcast resources for you on this show. Mr. Gilder, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. You are listening
thank you. It's a pleasure for me, too. Thank you. Good to meet you guys.
Yes, very good to meet
Vegas.
you. You as well.
You go to Freedom Fest?
We have. I've actually spoken there one time, so.
Okay.
But yes.
All right.
Very nice.
I'll be there again this year.
Fantastic.
Okay. All right. So you are listening to Wealth Talks with Dr. Tom and John McPhee, bringing you the facts so you can thrive in life. Have a wonderful week.